The desert had always been a place of silence, but on that particular night, the silence felt different, heavier somehow, as if the air itself were holding its breath above Black Ridge Air Base, a classified military installation carved into the barren emptiness of Nevada's high desert, where sand met stone and secrets were buried deeper than the bedrock below. And Sergeant Daniel Reeves had been on enough night shifts to know when something felt wrong, even before the alarms or the shouting or the impossible glow that would soon stain the heavens. It started at 1:17 hours when the radar technician, Airman Collins, leaned closer to his screen and frowned at a pulse that didn't behave like any aircraft signature he had ever seen, because it wasn't moving in a straight line or even a curve, but rather blinking from one position to another, as if distance meant nothing to it. And Daniel, halfway through a cup of stale coffee, felt a chill crawl across his spine as the fluorescent lights above flickered once and steadied, the hum of generators vibrating faintly through the reinforced concrete floor. Outside, the wind dragged thin sheets of sand across the runway, while armed patrols moved in predictable routes beneath a sky thick with stars. But within minutes that sky would no longer belong to the night, because at 1:23 the power surged violently. Monitors flashed white, and the radar signature multiplied into dozens of identical points, forming a perfect circle directly above the base, a formation too precise to be natural and too instantaneous to be human. And when the backup systems kicked in, Daniel heard the distant roar of jet engines as two F-16s scrambled without hesitation, their afterburners igniting the darkness in streaks of fire as they climbed toward the anomaly. Yet before they reached even half their intended altitude, the pilots' voices crackled through the comms in confused fragments. Control, we have visual. This is not, repeat, not conventional. What is that light? And then the sky changed, not gradually like a sunrise, nor violently like an explosion, but smoothly, unnaturally, as a green luminescence spread outward from the circular formation until the entire dome above the base shimmered in an emerald glow that rippled like liquid glass, bathing the desert, the hangars, the control towers, and every stunned soldier in a color that did not belong to Earth. Daniel stepped outside despite protocol screaming at him to remain inside, because something instinctive pulled him toward the open air, and he saw it clearly then. The circle of lights had condensed into a single massive shape suspended miles above them, silent and immense, its surface shifting like molten metal under translucent skin, and beams of pale green energy extended downward, not in destructive blasts, but in scanning columns that moved slowly across the terrain, as if searching, evaluating, choosing. And when one of those beams touched the runway, the concrete vibrated and cracked, yet did not shatter, and the F-16s froze midair, engines still roaring, but motionless as if trapped in invisible amber, the pilots' frantic voices dissolving into static before cutting off entirely. Panic erupted below as commanding officers shouted for defensive measures that never activated because the missile systems failed to lock onto anything solid, reading only empty air where the massive object clearly existed. And Daniel watched as soldiers aimed rifles upward in helpless defiance, green reflections dancing across their helmets, until a second phenomenon began, a low-frequency hum that resonated not in the ears, but in the bones, a soundless vibration that caused every human heart on the base to synchronize in rhythm, slow and deliberate, as if some external force had taken hold of their biology. Daniel's thoughts blurred yet sharpened simultaneously, memories surfacing without warning. His childhood in rural Montana, the first time he saw the Milky Way without city lights, the promise he made to serve something greater than himself. And he realized with dawning horror that whatever hovered above them was not merely observing technology or infrastructure, but consciousness itself. Because within seconds, soldiers began lowering their weapons in unison, expressions blank, eyes reflecting the green sky like mirrors, and Daniel fought the sensation clawing at his mind, repeating his name silently, grounding himself in identity as the hum intensified. Then the central object shifted again, its surface splitting open in geometric patterns, revealing a core brighter than anything he had ever seen, yet strangely gentle. Not burning, but illuminating. And from that core descended a single, solid column of green light, directly onto the communications tower at the heart of the base, engulfing it completely without explosion or debris, dissolving steel and circuitry into particles that rose upward like glowing dust, and every electronic device across Black Ridge went dark simultaneously, plunging the installation into mechanical silence, broken only by the persistent hum from the sky. Daniel staggered as the ground beneath him trembled subtly, and he noticed something even more terrifying. The stars beyond the green veil were vanishing, not obscured by cloud or smoke, but blinking out one by one as though erased, leaving only the vast emerald canopy overhead. And for a moment he wondered if this was not an arrival, but an enclosure, as if the base, and perhaps far more than the base, had been sealed inside something incomprehensibly vast, time stretched strangely, seconds elongating, into what felt like hours while the soldiers stood immobilized between fear and awe. And then shapes began to form within the descending beam atop the tower's remains, silhouettes emerging gradually until 3 figures stepped onto the scorched ground where the structure had stood, tall and slender, their forms vaguely humanoid yet fluid at the edges, as though their bodies were projections rather than flesh. And though no mouths moved, Daniel heard a voice not in his ears, but inside his mind, calm and resonant, stating simply, "Observation phase complete," in flawless English layered with harmonics that suggested countless tones beneath it. Terror should have overwhelmed him, yet instead he felt a profound stillness, as if the vibration had harmonized his fear into acceptance, and he realized the figures were not looking at the base or its weaponry, but directly at him, their luminous eyes focusing with unsettling precision. And the voice spoke again within his consciousness, "You will witness." While behind him, engines of military vehicles roared futilely to life and died instantly, and the frozen jets above finally shattered into fragments of light that dissolved before touching the ground, and the green sky pulsed brighter in response, marking the moment the night over the base transformed from unexplained anomaly into undeniable encounter. The beginning of an event that would fracture not only military secrecy, but humanity's understanding of its place beneath the stars. Because Daniel sensed with absolute certainty that this was only the first movement in something far larger, something that had been watching far longer than any radar could detect, waiting for a precise threshold to be crossed before revealing itself in a color no human would ever again associate with peace.